Well, welcome to the three amigos who ride out on their horses periodically to record films about living with dementia. And we've been asked to record some discussions about elements of dementia, aspects of dementia, for use in schools. And we'll try and divide it into sections. First of all, to introduce ourselves, Dory.
I'm Teresa Davis from Flintshire, but go by the name of Dory.
But that's after Dory the fish.
Yes, with the short-term memory loss, and I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's aged 59.
Thank you. Gail.
I'm Gail. I live in Lancashire, little town called Cleveleys near Blackpool. And I was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 54.
And I actually live in North Shropshire. And I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia 10 years ago when I was 64. So all three of us have, since we were diagnosed, and I suppose you could say since we met, we've all three of us become, I suppose, campaigners, writers, speakers about life with dementia, but also about what could be and hopefully will be improved one day. So the first discussion we're going to have will be about the actual disease, dementia. It's known as dementia. Okay. And there are several types of dementia. Anybody like to start off with describing Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia.
Yeah.
And then it's vascular. But
and then like Lewy
George,
body.
You can get mixed.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think Alzheimer's is more, or described more, to affect your memory. But
I think we're on tricky ground there.
Yeah, yeah.
Edit
that. Because my memory's not too bad, actually.
Well, indeed. I mean, let's lay the ground out. Dementia is basically the name for a number of symptoms which people may develop at any age, but usually after 55-ish, mostly after 75-ish. And they're symptoms that reflect or that come from disease in the brain. And it can be in any part of the brain. And the name of the dementia usually is to do with where in the brain it happens. Okay. But there are other significant differences between the types of dementia you have and the symptoms that you get with them. But the most important thing we all say about any form of dementia is that once you've met one person with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia. Everybody has different symptoms.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different range of symptoms, balance of symptoms. So, Dory, tell us, what are your main symptoms?
Word finding and counting. I can't count or spell, but I was never a very good speller, but the words, I say words different to, I call things, it's hard. I
You
called
sometimes,
him the wrong name.
yeah,
I mean, I called the bushes dishes, and I say the wrong word.
yeah,
I know what I mean.
but the wrong word
But it
comes
comes
out.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you, Gail?
I think we've all got a variety of symptoms, which sometimes is very hard to describe because we forget what our symptoms are.
Yeah,
But for me, it was memory, but not in a majorly capacity. It was little bits of things, short-term memory. So somebody was to tell me something, an address, I wouldn't remember all that address. I would have forgotten bits of it. I couldn't remember the whole thing. Multitasking has been one of my biggest ones. I can't do two things at once, whereas before dementia, I was well known for running a house, a business, and everything else.
So
Remember,
when you say you can't do two or more things at once, give us an example, because some people would think, well, you can only, if you're writing using a pen, yeah, you can only do that once. But you could be doing something else, listening or speaking, or if you're cooking. For me, I can't. I've always cooked a lot in my life, and I still cook, but I can't cook with other people around if they're talking or just interfering or whatever. I have to do it on my own.
yeah, I always bake on a Saturday because my husband's not here. And if I try to bake on a Sunday when he is here, I cannot do it. It always goes wrong because I forget to put things in. I forget what I've done. I forget the process. The process just goes straight out of the window. And I think that's where you realise that there's something not just quite right. And also, my speech is starting to go more where
We haven't noticed, but you know,
where I do stumble more, and it to me it's like I'm taking a breath a lot, and I don't think I am. It's just that I'm trying to think of the next word.
yeah, that's quite common, I think, for us. Go on, Dora.
Yeah. If I'm speaking and somebody interrupts me, which I tend to do a lot, I think, interrupt others. My train of thought just disappears.
Yeah.
So they have to let me finish what I was saying.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that happens to a lot of people we know is that if you're in a conversation or a discussion or something in a group, and you think of something you want to say or ask, if you don't get it out there and then, you've forgotten by the time someone comes and says, "Now, what did you want to say, George?" And you can't remember, so you have to write notes or hold a card up. You know, we use this a lot in order to make it clear that we need to speak soon, otherwise we'll forget what we were going to say.
Yeah, I've always got a pen and a piece of paper nearby now, because if I am in a meeting or whatever and somebody says something, I think, oh, I want to say, I have to write it down now, otherwise it's completely gone. Plus, I sometimes forget the question halfway through, and I go,
absolutely.
oh, what were the questions?
I kept got books and books and pages of notes from. I make notes about every single discussion, meeting, whatever else I have. Let's talk more about symptoms then, because that's probably the most important thing for people to think about or to know about, what you might see in family, who you know, if we're talking to you, I'm not going to say youngsters, because some of you might actually be sort of late teens or something, but by and large, under 18s, possibly under 16s. So you're going to see, if you do see it, you're going to see dementia in maybe grandparents, possibly parents. I hope not for your sake, but it's possible. Or in neighbours, you know. So these are the sort of things we talk about with words, finding words, remembering what you were going to say, getting stuck in the middle of sentences. But that's to do with words. Memory can be a difficulty, as Dory said earlier. You can't always remember something. And I mean, I find that, oh no, I'll tell you what, Dory, tell us about your problems with cooking and memory.
I forget. I put the food in the oven and then I forget to check it, and usually always burns. And my daughter says, well, put the timer on. But I forget
to put the timer on. And what did you do with horrible consequences early on?
Oh, this is one of the reasons. Well, the main reason I went to the GP, because I boiled the kettle to make a coffee and it switched off, and I put my hand in the kettle to see if the water was hot. Well, obviously it was. So I think it's affected my logic as well.
Judgment as well, yeah.
Yes, because my friend said to me, I take everything, what is it, logically. Like
face
some
value?
children with Asperger's can do that as well.
You mean if somebody tells you to go and jump off a cliff, you might actually do it?
Well, I nearly jumped off the cheese grater, didn't I?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For those of you who don't understand that particular message, the cheese grater is a very large brand new building down in London, and Dory and some other friends were going to go and abseil down the side of the building in order to raise money. It didn't happen for health and safety reasons, but it should have.
It nearly did.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
I don't think of the consequences. I don't think anymore.
Ah, right. That's an interesting one. Yeah.
I'm starting to lose that at this moment in time. Our dear friend Wendy used to say that nothing frightened her. And I used to think, oh my goodness, how could that be? And then last week, I went out with my camera and the sea was rather rough. And I thought, I'll go and take some photos. And all the gates were closed. And why were the gates closed? For health and safety reasons, because it's dangerous. So what did I do? I went as far as I possibly could to get a photo. And I heard the rumbling and I thought, oh dear. And before
I bet you didn't think that. I bet you thought something else.
I said something else. And before I knew it, the wave had completely come over the top of me.
Oh, geez.
And I was stood there absolutely wet through. And then it dawned on me, Gail, you could have been washed away then.
Yeah.
And
Were
I
your
think
dogs?
No, the dogs had left the dogs indoors. But it was at that point that I suddenly realised that I was losing all sense of danger in a way.
Yeah.
And normally, because I suffer from anxiety as well with dementia, I didn't have any anxiety that day. And I'd just gone and done it. So it's quite dangerous as well, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can be. Yeah. I mean, it's rather like people getting lost, where they go off thinking, right, I'm going to go somewhere, and actually they realise later on that they don't know where they are and how to get home and so on. Happened to a friend of mine who was driving, still able to drive, although he did have a couple of accidents, which I was curious about, but I wasn't in the car, so that's fine. and he finally lost his license when he was driving from Shrewsbury to Telford and ended up in Stafford, and the police had to find him, and they decided, well, he can't, he can't work out where he is. And equally, I remember having an occasion early in my symptoms before I was diagnosed, where I was in an Aldi supermarket, and for about 10 seconds, I was just completely lost. I didn't know where I was, what I was doing, or why. Just that short period. It only happens occasionally, but yeah, it's just sort of lack of part of your brain switches off, so you can't work out from what's around you where you are or why you're there.
One day, I got on the bus to travel just 4 miles to somewhere I've been going all my life on this bus journey. And I got off the bus and I looked around and didn't recognise anything. And I had to phone my daughter up and say, I don't know where I am. And she said, well, you said you were going to Buckley, Mum. And I said, yeah, but I don't know. So she said, just stay there where you are. What can you see? She said. And I said, a clock on the wall. She said,
which could have been anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's a big feature in Buckley. So, so she came and got me. But by the time she came, I remembered where I was. And I felt really strange how come I didn't remember
Yeah, that's happened with me in a restaurant. We went out for a meal and I went to the toilet, went into the toilets, knew exactly where I was, opened the door to come back out into the restaurant, and I hadn't got a clue. And panic sort of sets in. Oh, where am I? What am I doing here? And there were people in front of me staring at me, so I don't know what I looked like, but I must have looked terrified.
Had you pulled your trousers up at that stage?
I hope so. So I went back into the toilets and sort of calmed down. And then when I opened the door up, it's like being in a TARDIS in a way.
Yeah.
There it is. I know where I am. And there's my husband sat there and I could see him. But at that moment in time, I hadn't got a clue.
Yeah. And then you're back in the room again.
Yeah. It's so strange.
I think I'll try and make it clear to people watching this that this disease that we have in our brains, and we don't really know, no one really knows how it starts, but basically your brain sort of begins not to work as it should, as you're used to. So, when we were young, like you, we would we'd do whatever we did without thinking. You'd pick up a tea, you'd make a cup of tea, you'd go and do your homework, you'd go to work or whatever it is. And you don't need to think about it. You drive a car, you get so used to doing it, you don't need to think about it. But then when that bit of brain just doesn't quite connect properly and the signal doesn't get through between one bit of the brain and the other, that ability to do things without thinking stops. So some things all of a sudden become difficult to do, or you have to find ways round. A lot of what we talk about is people find ways round the difficulties. The brain finds its way round. The brain is sometimes called by scientists plastic, not because it's made of plastic, but because it has plasticity, which means it can change. It's not like you can massage it, but it can grow more different connections. So that if you have a problem with one connection, it can find another way round. If you try to do it often enough, it will find a way. So a lot of what we're talking about not being able to do at times or finding difficulties with are simply because those bits of the brain have some blockage or something stopping them from working properly. And we have to find ways around them.
You know what I did this morning?
Oh,
I'd made a sausage bath for breakfast. And I got the tomato sauce out the fridge to put on, and I squirted it all into my coffee.
The other day, I was going to put my tea bag into the bin, but instead of putting the tea bag in the bin, I poured my tea in the bin. So I lost everything out of the cup. What's going on? Why do we do these things?
I don't know. I really don't know. Well, because we got dementia, I suppose.
Yeah, and then I try to remember the stupid things that I've done so I can blog about it. But by the time I come to write my blog, I can't remember.
But it was, yeah. And then something will just prompt you, won't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Because I've just made a coffee. I was just saying, George, this morning I was making a sausage bath. And I got the tomato sauce out the fridge. And instead of putting it on the sausages, I squirted it all in my coffee. What's that about?
Oh, bloody hell. Hard luck. Yeah.
I don't know why we do these things.
Oh, I don't. No.
It's as if part of somewhere in our brain we're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this. I want the tomato ketchup on my back.
Yeah.
And the other part of the brain, or somewhere else, can't quite pick that signal up properly, but it knows it's something to do with putting tomato sauce somewhere. So you see a cup of coffee in front of you and you squeeze it in.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, oh, I must get the Alpro out the fridge to put in my coffee. So maybe that's where the two.
Which is interesting, because one of the things that I think most of us find is we have to concentrate very hard when we do things. And the simplest things in life we have to think about in order to make sure we do them right.
Yeah, definitely.
And that makes us tired.
Yeah.
So because we're working harder in our brains, we get more tired than we used to.
Yeah, very true.
What other things do you find, or do we find, have changed and maybe more difficult as a result of dementia?
I don't go to family parties as much as I used to. It's quite a lot of young children in my family, and on New Year or birthdays, they throw big parties. And I used to love going. I love children. But I can't stand the noise anymore. It's like just their chatter, or if there's a baby crying, or the scream, just noises small children make. So I've stopped going, because I thought I've got to take myself out of that situation, because I was getting all anxious. But then some people have said, oh, I've become miserable because I won't go to the parties. They don't understand.
Yeah, this is not uncommon.
Yeah.
I
find it difficult as well, where there's lots of noise, lots of people. And I know that I have withdrawn from lots and lots of things. It's a strange strange one, because even though it's family members, which people that are very close to you, you can't do it. You just can't do it, even though you want to do it. You know that if you do it, that there will be consequences, and those consequences are normally a bad head later, or agitation, or saying something that you shouldn't really say to somebody, but you're getting that angry with the whole situation that, it's just.
Yeah. I remember one time I was at one of, I think it was the last time I went, but I got that anxious. I sort of had a bit of a meltdown. I don't know how or what I did, but I was told I was scaring the children. To stop it, you're scaring the children. And I think that's when I decided these people who were family, who should understand, didn't. And so I thought, I'm going to take myself out of that situation. But now I'm classed as miserable, so you can't win either way.
No, I've been classed as not having dementia, just being awkward.
Yeah, this understanding or lack of understanding, it's difficult because I'm sure, Dora, you've tried to explain to your family, but some people, I mean, I know with Gail, some of her family don't want to know. I can't speak for mine because, well, I can. My immediate, my children and my wife, they get it.
My children.
They still make noise though. They still have, if they get together at Christmas or sometime, and I'm around, it just drives me mad because then they get very loud, and loud noises for all of us, I think. If you don't know what the noise is, so you're not expecting it, so you're not prepared for it, it really is quite a shock. And if that keeps happening, your brain can't settle down because you can't focus on what you want to focus on. And if people are talking across you, you can't keep up with it. And by the time you've sort of worked out what they said, they're halfway through their bit. And by the time you actually get the opportunity to say something, you've forgotten what you were going to say. So you give up, and I guarantee, children, that you will have seen someone, if they have dementia, just sitting there watching, just not really taking part, and you'll be thinking, "Oh God, how ill they are," because they're unable to take part. Well, no, they're not necessarily particularly ill. It's just that their brain can't work fast enough, and they can't cope with noise and lots of different things happening at once.
It's too much to process, isn't it, for our brain?
Yeah, it's like when somebody asks you a question, and if you don't answer that question immediately, they ask you another question, and then another question. But I can't think because I'm still thinking of the first question. And then they're going, come on, what you're saying? What's your answer? Well, just give me time. I think what people forget is that our brains don't work as fast because we've got to click into action, and it takes a little bit of time. And if you give us the time, then we'll be able to think of the question and answer it. But sometimes we just can't do it immediately, like a normal person.
So that's where you could help children who are listening, young adults, by giving people with dementia the time to speak.
And the time to find words, to find their thoughts, to listen and think. So, I mean, I think what we would probably say to everybody is give people time, listen to them, don't interrupt them, even if there are long gaps, doesn't matter having long gaps of silence. If someone is thinking what they want to say, then give them time. And do try not to fill in those gaps. Try not to find the words. Don't put the words into a person's mouth, because it'll frustrate them. If somebody if I'm talking and then get a bit distracted and lose train of thought, and someone else then jumps straight in and fills in, if that happens often enough, I'm just going to give up bothering to try. And what we find often is that the husbands and wives, or partners nowadays, of people who develop dementia often take over all the speaking and speak for them, because they get used to not waiting, not giving time. And the person with dementia gets used to giving up before they can think of what to say. So everything has to slow down.
Yeah. Because it is annoying when somebody jumps in with a word and it's not the word that you're thinking of. And I normally get into a bit of a flap and go, no, that's not the word. And then they just reel off other words. So then I've lost the train of thought anyway, because they've tried to carry on my conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be fair to say there are times when little prompts can be useful.
Yeah.
But not just the regular habit of, I'll get on with it, for God's sake.
I know I will say to my husband, I can't think of the word. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
And then he's got to try and think of the word. But he doesn't jump in and give me the word unless I ask him.
So what are your favourite substitute words? I mean, I use thingamajig. I use, oh God, I can't remember what I use now.
Dooflar.
You what?
Dooflar.
I do, yeah, that's right, dooflar. Or dooflar, yeah.
Whatchamacallit.
Yeah, that's it.
That there gets used a lot. Yeah.
Thingamajig, you know, that thingy bob or
Yeah. So if you notice someone doing that a lot, especially if it's more than they used to do, the odds are it might be a sign that they're having difficulty finding words. Another thing that people often find difficult is sequencing tasks, or tasks which require sequencing. And the classic, and I don't know, you youngsters will probably not have done a Dementia Friends session. You might have, dementia awareness session. But there's often an example used where you ask people to work out how many steps there are in making a cup of tea. That's the classic example. Because everybody thinks, make a cup of tea, that's dead easy. But if you start thinking, where do you start? You've got to have the thought, I want a cup of tea. Then you have to get up, if you're sitting down, go to the right place to fill the kettle. You've got to know how to fill the kettle. You've got to fill it with cold water, well, ideally cold water, not hot water. You've got to then put it on the kettle, on the stove, or plug it in and turn it on. Some people have been known to put electric kettles on gas hobs. Yeah. She's laughing. Things you would laugh at, but these things do happen because people forget. I remember my father-in-law who had quite advanced dementia late in his life. And one of the things that an occupational therapist asked him to do in order to test whether he was able to live on his own or not was to make a cup of tea. And he said, oh, of course I can. Went over, filled the kettle up, and left it, and walked out of the room. he just forgot completely what he was doing because his memory was so short term. So there are a lot of things, and for every one of those processes, every task step requires your brain to work. You can't do anything without your brain. So if bits of your brain stop working as well, that bit, or the thing that controls, could go wrong. Probably will go wrong.
Well, I've had hallucinations, but I think there's some dementias that you get them more often. Or I know a lady, she keeps seeing her mother in the back garden, and then she'll say, and then she just disappears. And she'll say people have come to the house and taken all her clothes and taken her jewellery. It's just
the actual disease that is associated with hallucinations is called Lewy body dementia, or dementia with Lewy bodies. And by Lewy body, we mean tiny microscopic things within the brain cells, which stop the brain cells from working properly. And for some reason, don't ask us how, for some reason, it causes people with that form of dementia to see things that aren't there. And it might be a relative who's dead or gone or whatever. But the people I know generally, apart from what Dory just said, the people I know find they see things like little people, or snakes crawling across the table. And generally, they may be frightening, but people get used to them. And they get used to living with these things going on around them that aren't really there at all. But their brain is, for some reason, creating. It's like having a bad dream, but being awake while you have it. Yeah, which reminds me actually of something else. What about this thing about people thinking their clothes have been stolen? You said that, Dory, or their money's been stolen, or their keys have been stolen.
And that, I mean, my friend's father, he's got dementia. He's in his 80s, but he stopped her going around to his house because he said she's stealing his money. And he lives on his own, so she's worrying about him because she wants to go and make sure he's okay. Yeah. But he won't allow her in the house because he's saying she steals his money. And I know this girl, so I know sometimes some people, carers, could steal their money. But I know this lady very well, and I know, she wouldn't.
Yeah. So just to sort of find out an explanation for this, I know that if I can't find something at home, and I really, try hard to look for it, I know enough now that if I ask my wife to look for it, she'll probably find it. And I can look at something, see it, but not know I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
Walk away, turn around, come back, and there it is. Whether it's the mustard in the cupboard or the keys on the car keys on the table. But if I can't come up with an explanation and I can't find it, it might be money, it might be keys, it might be anything. I'm going to start thinking, and I do sometimes start thinking, okay, who's nicked that? Was it a builder?
Yeah.
Was it was it a grandchild? I mean, I shouldn't be thinking these things, but you do,
Yeah.
because you can't. You've got to come up with a logical explanation in your mind for what is not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you know of someone who thinks that they're being stolen from all the time, or their clothes are being thrown out or whatever, I knew someone who claimed that, and her husband said, no, they're all there in the cupboard, and he used to take her to the cupboard and say, here they are. But she'd still repeat next time I met her, oh, he's thrown all my clothes away. It's just the thing that the cogs aren't working together properly.
Yeah. It's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because this lady, she comes to my group and she said the other week, she said, see these clothes, she said, I've had to borrow them because somebody has stolen all my clothes. So you'll have to excuse how I look. She looks fine, but yeah, it's very strange how the mind, the brain, works or doesn't work.
But if you can try and understand why the person is thinking what they're thinking, it becomes a logical explanation.
Yeah.
If I can't see something, you may say it's right in front of me, but if I can't see it in my head, then I've got to assume that someone's taken it.
Yeah.
Because it should be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we help people in that situation? Do you say, oh, for God's sake, look again? Please not. No, don't do that. I get that. And I understand it. It must be bloody frustrating to live with. But actually, you're better off just saying, okay, I'll look, I'll find it.
Yeah.
And not making me feel as if I've done something really stupid and wrong.
Mm.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's like if you tell the same story. My son's the worst one. I'll tell him something and he'll go, Mum, you've told me that about 3 times. And I say, you're not supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember. I thought I was telling him for the first time.
Yeah.
So it just makes you feel stupid, doesn't it? When it pointed out to you that.
But there's something else that I need to mention about this forgetting things or not remembering things. Let's put it that way. My father-in-law, as I said, he had quite severe dementia towards the end, but his wife died about 2 years before he did, and he had a short-term memory of less than a minute. He could not remember anything. He just could not fix anything in his brain. So he couldn't remember that she died. So he kept on saying to us, where's Brenda? Wife's name. Where's Brenda? What's she doing? Why isn't she here? And to begin with, because I didn't really understand dementia at the time, guess what I said? Oh, she's died. She's dead. Yeah. Huh? Is she? And every time he would grieve as if that was the first time he'd heard it, right? And he'd say it again 10 minutes later. Where's Brenda? And well, not just me, the rest of us also thought, well, if we keep saying it often enough, it'll get through. That's not going to happen. If a brain can't fix a memory, however many times you say it, it won't fix it.
No.
So find ways round. Don't keep repeating someone's terrible agony.
Yeah.
It's easy enough to say, oh, she's she's making a cup of tea, or she's upstairs, because he won't forget that. He won't remember that either. You know,
Yeah.
if you say she's gone to collect the kids from school because that's what she used to do, he might think, okay, that's fine. And then a minute later, where's Brenda? Oh, she's gone to collect the kids. Okay, you know, it sounds awful, but actually, it's the kindest thing to do.
Yeah.
Go on,
I
Gail.
was going to say something about memory. Sometimes we forget what people say to us, but we never forget how a person makes us feel. So
Yeah.
if they've been quite nasty or aggressive in a certain way towards us, we will never, ever forget that. We'll forget what they've said to make us feel like that, but the feelings will stay with us. So when we see that person again, we will not like that person straight away.
Yeah.
If they've been nice to us and they've been happy and smiling, we'll be okay with them because we've got that feeling that they've made us feel good. Yeah. And so feelings are quite important to people with dementia.
Yeah, I mean, I think the science behind it is that the part of the brain that stores feelings, memories, or memories about how you felt, is less likely to be affected by dementia than the bits that remember facts that happened.
Yeah.
It's just because there are biases, hundreds of areas of the brain, and each area tends to have a separate function, although they do sort of interlink. And the thing, little area of the brain called the amygdala. It's an odd word, amygdala, but it is there somewhere in the middle of your brain, and that is associated with feelings, and that is often one of the last bits of your brain to be affected by dementia. So, as Gail says, you may not remember someone visited you, but you will probably feel very unhappy if it was an unhappy meeting. And equally, and this is an important point, I think, if you think that someone, it might be a granny or granddad, in a care home perhaps, or anywhere, but in a care home particularly, cannot recognize you, does not recognize you when you visit them, and you think to yourself, well, what's the point of me coming here? They don't recognize me. They won't remember what I say. They can't have a conversation. There's no point. Well, you're probably wrong. We cannot prove it, but there is evidence that if someone has a visit from someone who they like, and the visit is enjoyable, even if they don't show it, they will be in a better state of mind and less agitated, if you want, for up to 24 hours afterwards. They will have known that something good was happening, even if they couldn't work out what it was. And just because someone sits there unable to get anything out in terms of conversation or reaction, don't assume that it's not going on in there, because it probably is. They're probably just sitting back and they're taking it in and having a little conversation in their head, but they haven't got the ability to get it out.
And also there was, I don't know if it was a story I read or somebody I know, his wife was in a care home. She was in late stages of dementia, and he used to go in every afternoon and read to her. And one of the carers had said, you know, you don't have to come every day because she doesn't know you're there. She doesn't know you. And he said, but I know her. And so, but who was to say? like you were saying, George, you know, she was lying there, she was probably just listening, taking in the story,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's still to see that person as a person.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
My granddaughter said to me, "What will happen, Nanny, when you don't remember who I am?" And I said, "Well, if that happens, or when it happens, because nobody knows the future, and if I forget your name and who you are, just remember I love you. And that I won't forget that I love you."
Mm.
Yeah.
Just got a big hug off her.
Yeah.
And hugs are important.
Very.
Hugs are good.
Yeah.
Long hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to hug for more than 10 seconds or even longer. Is it 20
Yeah.
seconds to make it really count?
Yeah.
A quick fumble is not a hug.
I think for me, since dementia, I've become more of a huggy person than I was before, which is
And you
strange.
used to make teddy bears, for God's sake.
I did. I used to hug the bears, you see.
Now you prefer human beings,
Yeah.
which is healthy.
Yeah. I think another behaviour symptom, whatever, is awareness. Is it spat that one? Awareness? Spatial awareness, is that the right
Spatial.
word? That's
Spatial.
Yeah.
I'm going like you, Dora.
All right, I'm the dictionary. You can say what you want. I'll put it right.
Yeah, because for me it's stairs. I don't like stairs. I can't figure stairs out very well. Escalators and things like that. Oh no, we don't like them. But stairs, I tend to miss steps and overbalance. I have to have somebody with me or hold on to the rail. Because the awareness of things being around is slowly deteriorating.
Yeah.
I have the same.
Yeah.
I'm the same with stairs. I have to go down sort of 1 foot at a time.
Yeah.
It's again like you can't just do it automatically. You have to think carefully. That's a step down, one step down. And if there's patterned carpets on stairs in particular, but anywhere, but on stairs, patterned carpets completely throw us.
Yeah.
Because you can't work out. Your brain is trying to unscramble what it sees. So you see a pattern of, sometimes snakes or snake-like twists and turns, or geometric angles in various colours. And what actually you're trying to see is a flat surface to put your foot on. But you can't work it out because there are all these different angles and things. And it can make you fall over. I know people have fallen over because of that, and certainly fall downstairs.
Yeah.
And I remember falling downstairs, luckily only 2 steps, I think, because the bottom of the steps was in dark. It was in a pub, but I wasn't drunk. It was just because it was dark at the bottom, and I didn't see those stairs.
No. Curbs, I was always falling over at one point. I'm now aware. So, but quite a few times I fell off the curbs.
Yeah.
And the OT said to have a walking stick. So I did for a while, but then I found I kept tripping over the walking stick. So I'm just now learned to be more aware that it's not flat. There is a step.
Yeah. Do you have trouble with puddles? Anybody?
Leaving them or avoiding them?
I can't figure out if it's a puddle or not, so I just walk through them.
That's an interesting one because
Yeah.
some people describe them as looking like holes in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they reflect the light so you can see the sky in the puddle, but everything else is dark. So it's the
Yeah.
reverse
Weird.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the first time I did it was actually on a beach, and I must have walked through quite a few of these deep puddles, and I ruined my leather trainers. Remember, my husband said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I didn't know they was there," and I physically
Ah,
couldn't see them.
yeah.
It just looked like the sand underneath.
How
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah, very
It's
strange.
all in perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know someone who, well, he doesn't drive anymore, but he can't sit in the driver's seat because the cars that are passing or whatever always look closer than they are.
Right.
So he'd be
Well, it's
like
probably
this.
just as well if he's not driving that he's not sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I mean, in the front, his wife would drive.
Oh,
And
I'm with you. Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he'd be,
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
because he thought that vehicles were closer
Yeah.
than
Yes,
they
it's that
actually
judgment
were.
of distance
Yeah,
and I know one of the things that driving often what that is difficult with driving often is perceiving the distance between your car and the car in front,
yeah.
or the traffic lights in front, or the turning in front. Yeah.
Mm.
What can you do to help? We've covered some of this, but anything else we want to say more specifically, perhaps for a separate section?
Give us a
Um,
quiet space. Sometimes
give
we just
people,
need a quiet space. We like
yeah,
to be on its own sometimes, which is very important because it gives us time for his brain to recharge.
yeah,
Yeah.
So we're not being awkward by taking ourselves off and going sitting in a room. It's
yeah,
just we just need to be quiet. We need to get away from the noise.
yeah.
Otherwise, we will become agitated if you make us sit there and listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think not asking sort of direct questions as well. Like,
Especially if they involve memory.
Yeah.
yeah, but it can make you feel if they ask, I know this gentleman, if you asked, just came out and said, "Where did you work?" You could see he'd be trying to remember
Yeah,
and couldn't. And then he'd get very upset and anxious because he's thinking, I should remember what I did. So try and find out things in a more roundabout way. Maybe.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And one way to do that, this comes from a book I read, not my brilliant idea, but it's to just throw out a few suggestions. Just start talking about something.
Mm.
So if you want to encourage a conversation about, for example, your granddad's experience at school, then start talking about yours. And it may well trigger them to remember what they did.
Yeah.
Or if you want to talk to them about what they did as a job, or jobs, then start talking about someone else's father or someone. Just without saying what do you used to do. Say, oh, I met someone the other day who used to work in a car factory or something,
And
and you'll see what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just thought of something. Don't be frightened to speak to anybody that has dementia
Yeah.
because we're not going to bite. We're not scary people because we
Well.
okay, only sometimes. Because we do get people. I had a gentleman this morning who I was in a conversation with regarding my camera. And he asked me what the zoom was on my camera. I haven't got a clue. I just have a camera and I use it. I can't remember what zoom it is. I just have a button. It does it itself. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't remember what Zoom it is. And he said, you bought a camera and you can't remember what Zoom it is. Anyway, he started going on and on. So I got a little bit annoyed. So in the end, I just said, I have dementia. Within 2 minutes, that gentleman left me.
Yeah.
But he could have carried on that conversation, but it was if he was frightened then to speak to me, because I said, I'm sorry, I can't remember because I have dementia.
Mm. And then you might get a response and saying, oh, well, haven't we all? Or, oh, well,
Yeah.
we all do that when you forgot, you know.
Where your keys are.
Yeah. Oh, well, we all do that. Well, no.
Yeah. And what's the other classic? You don't look like
you've got dementia. Yeah. What does a person with dementia look like? Because I've got dementia.
And I've got dementia. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
so, yes, we don't. I mean, the honest answer is we don't look any different from anybody else. We are just ourselves.
Yeah.
The difference you'll notice is that we may take, as we've already said several times, we may take more time to do things. We may not be able to explain things immediately, like how big our Zoom is, pardon my French, and you know, all sorts of stuff. By the way, was your camera wrecked by the seawater?
I have 2 cameras and it had to dry out for a good few days, but it is okay. How long it lasts, I don't know, but it is okay. Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Something else I did yesterday, apart from the sausages and the tomato sauce in my coffee this morning, I threw my phone down the toilet.
Oh, God.
Why?
I don't know.
Am I allowed to ask what was going on when you threw it down the toilet? Was there a reason?
Was you cleaning in the bathroom or something?
I'd been to the toilet.
Yeah.
I hope you'd flushed it.
No.
This is good for schools. Yeah.
No, I hadn't. And my phone was on, I put it on the system because I'd been outside, so I had my phone with me and come in. And then obviously I'd gone to get the toilet roll and ended up just throwing my phone in.
Oh, dear.
And then I thought, what's that in the toilet? Oh, sugar.
Yeah. Yeah.
The things we do.
Yeah, because your brain just doesn't process.
I think I'd like to just add for everybody watching, we may not have made it clear at the beginning that dementia is not age-related. It does not occur because you get older. But the longer you live, the more likely you are to develop the disease that leads to dementia. So I'm sorry if that sounds a bit confusing, but just getting old doesn't mean you're going to get dementia, okay? No. Relatively few people will actually live with dementia in their 80s and die. But then most people have died by the time they're 80 anyway. You know, it's a fact of life. If average, what is average life expectancy now? I think at the moment for men it's about 72 or 3, and for women it's about 82 something. So you know, if that's average, then half the population are going to die before those age and half afterwards.
But my friend's mother, she's 94 and as bright as a button. She can't, her mobility's gone, but she's as bright as a button.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean to say when you get old, you'll get dementia.
But it's also fair to say, I mean, I'm talking here from the science, that the brain does not work as well, with or without dementia. It doesn't work as well as you get older. It's like as Dory just implied, people's joints start to get arthritic and don't work very well. You develop other illnesses as you get older because your body's just aging. But what the hell was I saying? But what we often find is that if we go to a doctor before we're diagnosed and say, "Oh, I'm having trouble. I keep on forgetting where I put my keys," for example, often the reply we get is, "Oh yeah, I can never find my keys either." But the difference is, he or she might only occasionally lose their keys. For us, we lose keys and everything else all the time.
Mm.
So that's the difference between normal aging, as let's say, and having a disease that makes it worse.
Yeah. Or recognising when you do find your keys, recognising that they are your keys.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Mm.
We better not get into throwing keys into bowls. Thing of the past, I think. I tell you something else I would really like to impress on everybody watching this is that if you find that someone you know has been diagnosed with dementia, and I'm going to say at any age, would you please teach them or help them to learn to use a smartphone and preferably a tablet, whether it be an iPad or some other tablet, because we, in particular, the three of us and our friends, find it incredibly useful to stay connected to other people, to make new friends, to buy things online,
to set reminders.
Yeah.
To Alexa, set reminders.
Yeah, to set reminders using Alexa, or other things are available. Yeah. To find news. It keeps you in touch in an active way. Yeah.
And also, don't stop us from doing things. Just because we've got dementia doesn't mean to say we can't still do things. Don't take over. Don't take over, because we still want to try to do things. And if you stop us from doing things, we will lose that ability to maybe get dressed, to speak, to eat. There's lots of things, so let us carry on.
Yeah. But in later stages, you may need to assist, not to stop the person doing it, but to assist.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on the stage.
I mean, I think we said earlier on in a different part of this film that people sometimes, as the dementia develops, lose the judgment or the ability to judge whether doing something is safe or not, but they still want to do it.
Yeah.
So if that is a situation you find someone you know in, then rather than saying don't do it, just go with them. Let them lead you. But you can just make sure they don't get into trouble.
Yeah. And
for God's sake, don't imprison people at home or in a care home, whatever, because people have to stay connected with their environment, with their community, with things that they're used to going on around them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Dory.
I was just going to say to the young people watching this film, you may think, oh, the laughter that
we laugh a lot.
But as I say, if we can laugh at ourselves, people will laugh with us and not at us.
Yeah.
It's better to laugh than to cry, isn't it? Because these things are going to happen to us because we've got dementia, like me throwing my phone down the toilet and putting tomato ketchup in my coffee. But got to laugh.
Luckily, I haven't yet visited Dory at her home, so I haven't had coffee with tomato ketchup.
Oh,
It
you're
might
very
come.
lucky. Maybe that's
Um,
why my daughter always says, I'll say, oh, I'll make us a cup of tea. And she says, Mum, you sit down, I'll make it.
Cup of ketchup.
She knows she'll get a proper cup.
So I think probably we've said as much as we can or need to. We could go on. We often do. I mean, just to mention that laughing thing again, we know each other well. We joke together. We've during COVID, that awful time, we got to know each other really well because we were Zooming all the time with each other. And that goes for a lot of other of our friends as well around the country. But we do find that, and this is pretty universal actually for people with dementia, that the best social connection that we have is with other people with dementia, because we get it, we understand, and we can have a laugh about it. So if you know someone who has dementia, try to help them get to a group of some sort. The first group you find may not actually be the one for them. You don't know until you try it. Go along with them, just for the first time at least, but don't shepherd them. So, well, yeah, shepherd them, but don't shield them. Something like that. Just help them get into it, because peer groups really, there aren't enough of them, but where they do exist, they are really, really good for us.
Yeah.
That's the last thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching this and any other sections of this film that you see. And we will remain the three Amigos. We used to be, just as an end note, we used to be four Amigos. We made a lot of films. They're all on YouTube. Please do have a look at them. Just you search for Four Amigos on YouTube. But one of our Amigos, Wendy Mitchell, who was a very well-known and, well, indeed famous person writing about and talking about life with dementia and campaigning. She died a few months ago. So I suppose I ought to say she died in early 2024, and we miss her. So we're continuing as the three Amigos. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Bye now. Great.